Sometimes, the most ordinary routines lead us down the darkest paths. A jog, a drive home, even a simple phone call can become the start of a nightmare you can't wake up from. Tonight, we delved into 3 unsettling accounts from people whose everyday lives were shattered by inexplicable. I'm navigating my late 30s, single. This event happened a couple of years back. Life felt muted then, gray. A long-term relationship, the one I'd pinned my future on, marriage. Kids, the whole blueprint, had imploded. Honestly, the fallout left me adrift. Weeks blurred into a monotonous cycle. Wake, work in silence. Return home to the suffocating quiet of my empty house, usually retreating to my bedroom upstairs. I had a small couch and TV there. It became my bunker. Weekends were worse. Meals forgotten. Sunlight avoided. Lost in a stream of forgettable movies. Barely registering the plots. But this isn't about the breakup, not really. I'm in a better place now, though the ghost of that alternate life still flickers sometimes. Anyway, it was a Saturday evening. I was sprawled on the bedroom couch, numbly clicking through streaming options. My phone buzzed on the end table. My mom, 4th time that day. I let it ring out. Love her, but I didn't have the energy for the gentle interrogation about my well-being. Eventually, tired of the action flick I'd landed on, I scrolled again, settling on some low-budget horror movie I'd never heard of. Grainy thumbnail, generic title, perfect background noise to drift off to. 20 minutes in, I realized the movie wasn't just bad. It was technically abysmal. The sound mixing was atrocious. Dialogue was barely audible whispers, forcing me to crank the volume, only for the next jump scare or sound effect to assault my ears. Yet, I kept watching. Partly laziness, partly a morbid curiosity to see how such a train wreck concluded. Then I started noticing it. A specific sound effect recurring. A sharp, metallic clank, like a heavy pipe dropped onto concrete. It felt off, out of place. It didn't sync with anything on screen, no construction sites, no metal objects in hand. It wasn't even timed with the scares. It just happened. Every 60 seconds or so. Clank. Same pitch. Same volume. Unnervingly consistent. It seemed too precise to be an accident, yet too jarring for intentional design, especially given the rest of the audio mess. The sheer awfulness of the film kept me glued, paradoxically. Around the halfway mark, nature called. I got up, and for some reason, I actually hit pause. Usually, I wouldn't care. When I returned and sat down, remote in hand, poised to resume the cinematic disaster. Clank. The movie was paused, dead silent. The sound hadn't come from the speakers. It was real. It was somewhere, inside the house. I froze, stared at the frozen image on the screen, straining my ears. Was I imagining it? Had the bad audio finally scrambled my brain? I waited, holding my breath. Silence stretched. Then, clank. Identical, undeniable. Adrenaline surged. I snatched a heavy glass paperweight from my desk. Stupid, I know. But it was the first thing I saw, and began a frantic sweep of the house, downstairs, room by room. Living room, kitchen, dining room, closets, pantry. Nothing. No one. No forced entry, no disturbed furniture. Everything was eerily normal. Heart hammering against my ribs, I started back up the stairs. Halfway up, clank. Fainter this time. Coming from my bedroom, where I'd just been. That made no sense. Then it hit me. The windows. It was spring, finally warming up. I'd cracked a few windows open earlier, including the one in my bedroom, letting in the evening air. The sound? Maybe it wasn't inside at all. Maybe it was coming from right outside. That thought sent a colder wave of fear through me than the idea of an intruder. Already inside. Sound. I crept to the bedroom window overlooking the backyard. Cautiously, I parted the curtain just a sliver. My breath hitched. One of my metal deck chairs, usually tucked under the eaves, was sitting inexplicably in the middle of the dark lawn, about 20 feet out, and beside it stood a figure, small, very small, a child, too dark to see features, but the silhouette was unmistakably that of a young kid. He was holding something long and thin, a pipe, and as if sensing my gaze, he lifted it and deliberately struck the metal chair. Clank. Sound. I recoiled from the window, fear seizing my chest. A kid, alone in my yard at night, banging a pipe. Why was he lost, disoriented? But he'd been out there, making that noise, for almost an hour while I watched that stupid movie. An hour. The persistence chilled me to the bone. My mind raced. Maybe he needed help. Maybe he was scared. I told myself I had to do something. Steeling myself, I went downstairs, heading towards the back door, flicking on the porch light as I went, hoping it might seem less intimidating, give me a better view. My hand was on the doorknob, turning. when a primal warning screamed in my gut. Trap, if he were lost, wouldn't he knock? Call out, why bang a pipe on a chair for an hour straight? It felt rehearsed, wrong. I slowly retracted my hand. Instead of opening the door, I moved silently to the small window beside it, the one offering a partial view of the porch and yard, keeping the interior lights off. I carefully tilted one slat of the blinds, peering through the narrow gap. My blood ran cold. Crouching low, just beneath the porch light's glare, hidden from the main view of the door, were two men, dressed entirely in black, positioned perfectly to ambush anyone stepping outside. I must have lingered too long, my silhouette perhaps visible against the faint interior light, because one of them slowly turned his head, his eyes meeting mine through the glass. I dropped the blind, stumbling back, fumbling for my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. As I scrambled halfway up the stairs, a violent bang erupted from the back door. They were trying to force it. I sprinted the rest of the way, slammed my bathroom door shut, locked it. Panic crushed my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then, a sickening crash from downstairs. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, moving through my house. They were coming upstairs. I held my breath as the steps reached the landing, moved down the hall. The bathroom doorknob jiggled, then turned slightly. A pause, then a deafening bang as someone slammed their body or foot against the door. That broke me. The police are coming. I screamed, voice raw with terror. The footsteps immediately pounded back down the stairs. A door slammed somewhere below. Then, silence. The police arrived minutes later. I recounted the whole bizarre, terrifying sequence. Without cameras, without a clear look at anyone but the child's silhouette. There wasn't much tangible evidence, but the detail about the child, that clearly unsettled the officers. Using a child as bait, they said, suggested a level of planning, of cold calculation, far beyond typical opportunistic crime. That haunts me the most. That kid, used like that, was he forced? Was he part of their family? Every possibility is sickening. They called it random, but the elaborate nature of the lore, it felt targeted. Nothing's happened since. I've moved on, mostly, but I still wonder about that child, hoping against hope he's safe, even though I know the odds aren't good. It's 2024. Graduation is just weeks away. Quick aside, I never got the appeal of those wild spring break trips my friends took, blowing money in some crowded party town. Not for me. College spring break always meant heading home, unplugging, recharging. This past March was the same. Escape the grind, the petty campus drama. I was actually fuming about a tower rejecting a perfectly valid grade appeal. But that's beside the point. Monday morning. No real plans, except hitting the gym. I'm a morning workout person. It's my anchor. Makes me feel vaguely functional. So, despite being on break, the 6 a.m. alarm went off. By 6:20, I was out the door. The gym is about a 15-minute drive, mostly through quiet suburban streets. Nice place to grow up, honestly, but undeniably dull once you hit adulthood and everyone scatters. I was cruising, listening to some instrumental track on YouTube, when something snagged my attention. An ice cream truck, parked curbside, engine off, no lights on. Odd, maybe, in summer, but this was mid-March. Still crisp air, kids definitely in school. Why would an ice cream truck be parked on a residential street at 6:30 a.m.? It looked wrong, out of season, out of time. As I drove past, I slowed instinctively, glanced at the driver's seat, empty, turning the corner. I couldn't shake a weird feeling. It wasn't just the timing. I couldn't recall ever seeing an ice cream truck in our neighborhood, not even as a kid. It just wasn't that kind of area. Shrugging it off, I hit the gym, got my workout in, grabbed a quick breakfast, felt productive. Driving back home, turning onto that same street, the truck was still there, same spot, unmoving. Now that felt strange. My neighborhood has its share of curtain twitchers. Someone usually complains about unfamiliar vehicles parked too long. I half expected it to be gone, maybe ticketed or reported. Curiosity overriding my route home, I looped around the block, approaching it from the other direction for a better look. This time, someone was inside. As I drove past, slower than intended, the man in the driver's seat turned and met my gaze. We locked eyes for a long second. He looked rough and kempt, stringy beard, gaunt face, eyes that seemed too watchful. He had this intensely sharp, almost elongated nose that gave his face a bizarre, unsettling quality, like a caricature drawn from nightmares. He radiated an air of someone who maybe lived in that truck. The vibe was immediately off-putting. I drove straight home, unnerved. Parents were at work. The house was empty. I tried to settle in, kill time online. Later that afternoon, I walked down the driveway to grab the mail. As I reached the sidewalk, I casually glanced down the street. My stomach plummeted. The ice cream truck, parked again, across the street, maybe 3 houses down. Not directly facing my house, but the placement felt deliberate, calculated. I froze, mail forgotten in my hand. He followed me. There was no other logical explanation. Trying to appear nonchalant, I retrieved the mail and walked back inside, heart starting to thud. Upstairs, I went to a spare bedroom window that offered a clearer vantage point, peeking through a gap in the blinds. Yes, still there. I watched for several minutes. Nothing happened, just the silent, brightly colored truck sitting under the afternoon sun like a cheerful predator. I couldn't just stand there watching all day. I tried to focus on my laptop, but my attention kept snapping back. Every 30 minutes or so, the urge became irresistible. Back to the window. Each time, the truck was still visible, but subtly shifted. Parked a few feet further up, then across the street again, then slightly angled. He wasn't just parked, he was maneuvering, slowly circling, observing. Should I call the police? What would I say? There's an ice cream truck, parked near my house. It sounded paranoid, flimsy. Looking back, I wish I'd just called, or ignored it. But a morbid curiosity, a growing dread, took hold. My older brother's an avid bird watcher. I remembered his binoculars. After rummaging through his closet, I found them, back at the guest room window. Pulse quickening, I raised them to my eyes. Focusing on the truck's cab, through the magnified view of the driver's side window, I saw him. The man with the unsettling face. He wasn't just sitting there. He was holding his own pair of binoculars, and he was looking directly back at me. The moment our magnified eyes met, he dropped his binoculars, slammed the truck into gear, and sped away. Horror washed over me. Cold, sickening realization. He'd been watching me, watching my house, for hours, since stalking me home that morning. Now I called the police, voice trembling. I explained everything, the morning sighting, being followed, the truck moving around, the binoculars. The dispatcher was professional, calm, assured me they'd send a patrol car to check the area, that an ice cream truck should be easy to spot. Then she hung up. What else could I do? When my parents got home, I told them. They were worried, of course, but tried to reassure me, suggesting it was likely just some weirdo who got spooked and moved on. Exhausted and rattled, I fell asleep early. Sometime deep in the night, I woke up, instantly alert, though I didn't know why. Checked my phone, just after 3 a.m. Silence. Then, I heard it. Faint, eerie, almost subliminal at first. The tinny, cheerful jingle of an ice cream truck. Panic flared, cold and sharp. Before I could process it, a soft tick sound against my bedroom window glass. Then another tick. Someone was outside, throwing small pebbles at my window. That's what woke me. The jingle was the soundtrack to their arrival. I sat bolt upright in bed, paralyzed by fear, staring at the dark window. Look, my brain screamed. Just look. But my body refused. Finally, forcing myself, I slid out of bed, crept towards the window, staying to the side, out of direct view. Took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. I pulled the curtain back swiftly. He was there, standing in the center of my moonlit front lawn. The man from the truck, staring up at my window, and on either side of him, small hands held firmly in his own, were 2 small figures, silhouetted, indistinct in the darkness, but unmistakably the size of young children. I didn't wait. Ignoring the icy dread flooding my veins, I spun away from the window, ran to my parents' room, shaking my dad awake, dialing 911 again as he gradually headed downstairs. He's a capable guy, not easily intimidated, but by the time he got the front door open, the lawn was empty. The faint jingle had faded. They were gone. The police came again, took another report. Days passed, nothing. I had to return to campus, leaving my parents on edge. That was nearly a month ago. My parents haven't seen anything suspicious since. But then, a few days ago, my mom called, voice tight, a local news story. A missing persons case had just broken. 2 6-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, vanished from their neighborhood about half an hour from ours. The image flashed in my mind. The man on my lawn, flanked by those 2 small, shadowy figures. Bile rose in my throat. Why stalk me? Why watch my house for hours, only to appear in the dead of night with them? If he was involved in something as horrific as kidnapping, why draw attention to himself like that? Was he trying to intimidate me? Did he think I saw something I shouldn't have that morning? Or were the kids already with him then, hidden inside that cheerful, predatory truck? The thought that someone capable of such an act doesn't operate with normal logic, that they might risk exposure just for the twisted thrill of terrorizing a witness, That's the only explanation I can stomach. My mom passed my information to the detectives on the case. Waiting to hear back feels like waiting for another pebble to hit the window. This unraveled last spring, about 9 months back. I work in car sales, premium brand. It's demanding. Long hours at the dealership, but the phone never stops. Client inquiries, follow-ups, negotiations. Means I have to answer pretty much every call, especially unknown numbers. Could be a potential beer, a lead. Comes with the territory. Also means wading through a constant stream of spam and robocalls. But I have to pick up, just in case. One night, late, after 10 p.m., my personal cell rang. Unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd answer reflexively, but I was already in bed, winding down. The lateness of the hour gave me pause. I let it ring out. No voicemail left. Okay, probably nothing. A few minutes later, it rang again. Same number. Annoyed, but forcing politeness into my voice, just in case, I answered. Hello. Silence at first, then static. Thick, crackling, like a bad connection. I was about to hang up, dismiss it as a pocket dial or glitch, when I heard something beneath the noise. A voice, faint, muffled. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. It was my voice, unmistakably, my cadence, my tone. It wasn't just my voice. It was a recording. A conversation I'd had earlier that day with a potential client, discussing pricing, vehicle availability, scheduling a test drive. Standard stuff, nothing confidential. But it was me, talking, on this stranger's call. The wrongness of it sent a jolt through me. I hung up, instantly. I just sat there in the dark, staring at the phone screen. Not quite panic, but a profound sense of unease. Confusion wired with a creeping dread. My first rationalization, maybe the client I spoke with accidentally but dialed me. While reviewing a recording of our call, people record calls for notes sometimes, right? It felt thin. Why would the number show as unknown? Not his saved contact. But it was the least terrifying explanation. The next morning, needing closure, I called the client back. He answered, friendly, normal. When I cautiously mentioned a strange call from an unknown number the previous night, maybe from him accidentally, he sounded genuinely baffled, had no idea what I was.